2Ls, so thank you 2Ls for showing up. Many of the 1Ls came to the info session for summer session. We talked about judicial and civil clinics because that's what we offer every summer. We're not going to start there. We're going to start with some of our more specialized clinics that are offered during the school year, and we're going to take them in a random order that's driven by who's here in the room and who has to be someplace else. So just know, in terms of all of our clinics, involve credit for actual legal work that you're doing in the field or on site for clients or for judges. And then with every clinic, in addition to the legal work you're doing, you take a class. The class may be skills focused, in most instances it is, and the class may also have some substantive relevance. So our guest speakers are going to talk both about the clinic work as well as the class coverage that goes with the clinic. At various points, I may interject or conclude regarding which clinics make which requirement. You probably all know that you'll have an experiential requirement of 6 credits. All clinic work satisfies or goes to that experiential credit. Many of the classes go to that experiential credit, so this is a great way to fulfill your experiential credit. In addition, you might be interested in certificates. Most of the certificates have clinic experiences as an option. But because Ken Shaheen, our professor that oversees the New Ventures class, has to be at work at 1 o'clock in Provo, we're going to let Ken talk about New Ventures first.
A great job. I get to go in at 1. Hi, Ken Shaheen. Is this better? Good. So Ken Shaheen, my day job is I work at Ancestry.com. I'm an executive VP there, and I run all of the Ancestry DNA, programs and products. So all those commercials you see come from my group. Graduated from law school here about 100 years ago. Certainly feels that way. We teach a New Ventures class, and basically what we really try to do in this class, and Linda and Kay can go through the sort of requirements. We have a clinical component where you can do the Lasan program, you can do the TCO, which is the licensing office here. There are a couple of other clinical programs that you can go to. There are frequently students that say, hey, I'm interested in entertainment law, I'm interested in sports law. We've been able to actually put students in different clinics that suit their professional interests. In the course portion of the class, what we try to do is really kind of go through the flow of what would it look like from a legal standpoint if you were to either start your own company or represent someone who was starting a company, right? So we'll do everything from a confidentiality agreement. Pretty simply, we'll do something like a material transfer agreement. We'll actually spend several weeks and even negotiate with the business school on a venture capital transaction. So how do you raise money? What's a subscription agreement look like? How do you do the valuation of the company? All of that kind of stuff. We end up spending a few weeks. It's usually super interesting for students to be on that side of that part of the world and basically understand how that works. We continue to do some more things like private equity, where it's more of a debt backed instrument. You guys might know, sort of like junk bonds and things like that. We'll talk about why that works, when is that used versus venture capital. And then the second half or the second semester of the course, we really spend the majority of it doing a pretty complex patent license agreement or technology license agreement. I do a lot of these at work, and so we'll go through that in detail. Look, to summarize, the one thing we try to do here is you learn a lot of things in law school, even the people who are patent agents, who know a lot of patent law. When they come into the class, right, how is that translated into a license agreement? How is that translated into, a new company? So that's what we really try to do, is connect a lot of the dots that you've learned in Civ Pro and in other contracts and other classes, and say, how does that Civ Pro, issue that we learned actually show up in a license agreement, and why is it so important you get it right? So that's what we kind of do. It's pretty loose class, we do a lot of discussions, a lot of case studies where you guys are negotiating against each other or other students in the business school and things like that. So, forget anything?
Yeah, no, sounds
That sounds good?
Thank
All
you
right,
very
thank you
much.
guys.
You get applause, wow. So the New Ventures Clinic and class qualifies for the IP certificate and the business law certificate. So it's a track where people that are interested in those areas of practice have an opportunity to have that experience. Is Steve Jones present?
No, he's not.
Is he not coming?
I think he is, but I think last year he was a little bit late.
Okay, lawyers from downtown having problems getting to the U. Is Jean O present? Oh, see, I didn't know if you were here or not. So that's exciting. Come on down. Jean O's from the Hinckley Institute, and she's going to talk to us about the Hinckley Governmental Internship Program and the Hinckley International Program. And I will say, but leave you all mystified, that in both cases you generally also need to take either the lawyering skills class, which we'll talk about, or a directed research. Jean.
Hello, thank you for having me here to introduce the Hinckley Institute a little bit. We have over 50 years of history with the Hinckley Institute providing interns to a slew of host offices across the world, parliamentary internships, business internships, health-related internships, business, education, and all of them have some sort of legal office that takes care of legal work for them. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in a law firm, but you could be interning in, let's say, the Asylum Seeker Resource Center, where one of the students, oh no, this isn't a student meeting, sorry, interned there last summer, and at another summer we had an intern from the law school intern at the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. But wherever you go, I understand that the law school has a very strict requirement, and so it works best if you can bring the requirement that you need to meet, and then we send it over to the host office to say that you need to meet these criteria and set up the internship in that way. Setting up the internship really isn't a big deal. The Hinckley Institute actually has a good presence out in the world. I just heard from an intern that walked in, a student actually from the Miage program, that walked in right now, which is why I ran a few minutes late, sorry about that, but who had a tour at the German Parliament when he happened to be visiting Germany, and they included the Hinckley Institute in their tour, saying, and we have interns from the Hinckley Institute. So we have a pretty good presence. Most of our interns, wherever they apply, are accepted, and they need legal interns in just about every office that's out there. So if you can encourage your students to apply, setting up your internship really works well. If I have students that come in and say, I found this office and they've already approved this job description that I need to do to meet my criteria for my clinical, then, you know, everything else is really downhill, or not downhill in a bad way, but you know, downhill in the sense that it's easy to set up. Are there any questions?
We're not taking questions.
Oh, okay, sorry. And that's it.
Talk about the governmental internships as well.
Okay.
And the class they take with you all.
All right. So the governmental internships are mostly in parliaments across, you know, Europe. I won't name all the countries. We are expanding into Asia and hope to have internships in the Korean National Assembly and something in China. But China recently changed their visa restrictions, and so that's posing a complication. What every intern has to do when they sign up with the Hinckley is register for the Hinckley course, and there are different courses for undergraduate, honors, graduate students, and it's a 10-week course. You submit reflective papers weekly, and your final is followed up by a policy paper, and if we can work in conjunction with the clinical program, it could be a final paper that focuses on whatever the clinical program needs it to focus on. Other than that, there are other minor assignments, you know, like a budget sheet and some documents that you need to turn in. But the Hinckley course isn't meant to be academically rigorous, because the major component that we want you to focus on is your internship. you'll be working full-time, 40-plus hours a week, and so all of your energy, or most of it, should go toward being successful in that and increasing your network while you're out there. And the course really is a supplemental, to ensure that you are, in fact, growing and learning in what you set out to grow and learn in, and to have the professional development piece, and to be able to articulate all of that. Anything else you wanted me to cover? Nope. Please come and see me. I'm just next door in Building 72 in the Hinckley Institute. Thank you.
So just to be clear, most of the people that work with Hinckley have that international interest, and seeing us and Hinckley early is the best way to go about that. The Hinckley National allows you to go to work for the U.S. governmental offices, usually in Washington, D.C., but I think this summer we're going to have somebody go to Atlanta, Georgia. So as long as it's a national governmental placement. Now, the one nice thing about Hinckley that she didn't mention is that they provide you scholarship money to get to the place you're going in the international set, to support you doing your internship, money that we don't have. So that's a great advantage if you want to do an international placement far away. I saw Steve Jones walk in, and he's going to come talk to us about the environmental clinic. And as you know, we have a specialty in environmental law, so if you're interested in environmental law, you have to do the environmental clinic. If you're just interested in possibly regulatory law, you'll get a lot of excellent experience as well.
Hi, I'm Steve Jones. I work at Holland Hart here in Salt Lake City, and Megan Hodeshell and I, Megan works at Par Brown. We teach the environmental practice class. It's taught fall semester, and second and third year students are welcome to be a part of that. We also supervise the environmental clinic, which is a series of placements, and we've had some actual good success, and that I think goes to these folks much more than it does to us. We supervise the work and talk about the stuff that the students are doing. We've had students do clinical placements while they've been in our class in the fall, and we've also had students do clinical placements while they're in the spring semester when we don't have environmental practice being taught. This last semester we had 2 students who were working in Washington, D.C. for the Department of Justice who attended the class via robot. That's the first robot students we've had. I don't know if any of you have been in those classes where the robots tool around, and it worked great. It was very weird, but it did work. They attended every single time. We even had moot court. We have an oral argument as part of the class, and they did oral argument remotely. So yeah, that worked really, really well. As you can see on the board, the placements have been pretty broad. We've put people at SUA. We've put people at the Department of Interior Solicitor's Office. We've put people at the AG's office. In fact, not this last year, but 2 years ago, one of the students in the class who was at that point working in the AG's office came in, and he was talking about the work he had been assigned while at the AG's office, and I had to say, you got to stop, because I was on the other side of that case. So they actually get really good substantive work. I've been very, very impressed with the work that every single one of the placements that we've had. It's not just busy work. They're doing actual research, working on briefs by and large. And the one other thing I would mention, for those of you who are graduating, if this is an interest, or if you in a year or two when you graduate, the administrative partner in our DC office is a former DOJ lawyer who has connections at DOJ, and they have actively recruited via her to our office in Salt Lake for the DOJ Honors Program. You have to be graduated to be in that, but that's a contact that we have. So if that's something that's of interest to you, after graduation, I can certainly put you in contact with that. So with that, questions, happy to entertain them, or I can stick around after we're done and
we can answer the questions if they have.
Absolutely. Okay.
Can I just say one short thing?
Yes.
And I'll just add,
Say it here.
since we're just,
Say it here in
okay.
the mic, or they can't hear you.
Okay. So just to give Hinckley another plug, the 2 students that were the DOJ interns last fall actually got clinic credit through the environmental clinic. However, they also took the Hinckley course, and they both lived in Hinckley housing and had scholarship support. So it was a great deal for them.
Yeah,
We do partner like that.
Thank you. We're now going to slightly segue from our placement experiences to our clinics that our faculty themselves oversee. And we're going to start with Marina Pena, who's a third-year student, and Anna Thomas from Voices for Utah Children to represent Lincoln Nearing and the Public Policy Practicum. So you folks now have your next 3.5 minutes.
Clear. Thank you. So my name's Anna Thomas. I work with Lincoln Nearing at Voices for Utah Children. We're a children's advocacy organization, which means we do legislation, policy analysis, we do lawmaker education, and we focus on kids' health, early education, tax policy, and increasingly juvenile justice, which is what this clinic has been focused on and will be focused on next year. So I am not an attorney. My background is in policy and communications, but Lincoln and I share juvenile justice work at Voices, so I pitch in and attend the clinic classes with him. And Professor Nearing, we've worked together a long time, is an attorney who basically just decided a long time ago he didn't want to be a practicing conventional attorney. So he's been in the public policy realm for many years, and he's very good at it. His focus is health policy and, of course, juvenile justice. And yes, retired Supreme Court Justice from Utah, Ronald Nearing is his dad, in case you were wondering. So the Public Policy Clinic has been around for several years now, and it has strong connections to Voices for Utah Children, but also, prior to that, the ACLU of Utah, where I spent 10 years before I came to Voices last year. And a couple of the products that this clinic has given as part of its work were an indigent defense report that was produced with and for the ACLU of Utah in 2011, which helped spur ongoing important changes in the indigent defense system in Utah. And then 2 school-to-prison pipeline reports, Finger Paint to Fingerprints in 2014, then Misbehavior or Misdemeanor in 2017. We have officially run out of adorable titles for those reports, so we could use your help when that comes around in the next couple of years. But the purpose of this clinic is really to give students a place to apply legal knowledge to a persistent and important local policy issue, to get right to work on it. So the clinic does go over the full year. You can take it multiple years. You can take it for both semesters. You don't have to. And the benefit of being involved in the spring semester is it takes place while the legislative session is also in session, and you are welcome. We usually follow bills as part of the work in the course, and you're also welcome to attend different hearings as much as you're interested. So as part of the class, we discuss theories for how to create systemic change, how to stay focused on big picture policy changes as you're engaged in the day-to-day work of policy advocacy. So there are some short exercises from week to week, nothing super substantive. Most of the work is work that is directed at some sort of policy product, usually a report or a bill to pass, something of that nature. So I've asked Marina, who's been in the clinic for a little bit now, to talk about her experience and why you might find this to be a good fit for you in particular.
So like you, I came to law school to become a lawyer, but this clinic has taught me that there are other options in case I decide that a legal career isn't necessarily what I want to do. So it's really opened my eyes to other options, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But in addition to that, I've, through the experience, and as Anna mentioned, this semester has focused on juvenile justice reform, and we're in the early stages of creating a report like the indigent defense report for juveniles. And our argument is that all juveniles across Utah deserve an attorney, the indigent juveniles deserve an attorney. So our work has focused on collecting data, requesting grandma reports, and contacting defense attorneys and prosecutors to kind of get their insight and their input on what changes need to be made. And then with that, eventually we hope that the report will change legislation or potentially a lawsuit to force the change. So it's been interesting to be on the early stages of that development, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from there.
Great. Thank you. No questions.
Okay, now continuing on with our in-house clinic, so I want Professor Anderson to come forward and talk about the Innocence Clinic.
Hi, I'm Jen Anderson. I am a professor here at the law school, and I run a clinic called the Innocence Clinic. It's available to you in your second year or your third year. And what we focus on is individuals who have been wrongfully convicted in Utah, Wyoming, and Nevada. This is a national movement. There's an Innocence Project in almost every state. We cover Utah, Wyoming, and Nevada, so the students get experience in all three of those jurisdictions. Basically, what happens in the clinic is you put in 250 hours over the course of a year, which is it's 5 credits, about 10 hours a week. And again, it's your second or your third year. We actually assign you cases of individuals who are claiming their innocence, and you do a full investigation of their case, from reviewing the case documents to interviewing witnesses to going to the prison to meet with your clients. So it's a really hands-on, get in the trenches and really meet your, learn about the work of not just doing an innocence case, but also just developing a case in general. I mean, the cases are the skills that you learn are completely transferable. Learning how to read a trial transcript, how to read a police report, how to interview a witness, how to interview a client, how to develop persuasively a story to tell about your case in order to hopefully get a good result. So as a clinical student, you will be doing that work. Right now, our office is off campus. There is a possibility that it will be moving into this building next year, so that you would be able to do the clinic right here at the law school. In addition to that, you then take a two credit class from me. It's a full year class. It meets once a week all year. And we spend that class, the first hour of that class is lecture, where we focus on the practical aspects of developing an innocence case, how you investigate it, how you litigate it, what are the causes of wrongful convictions, and how can we look at those in a purely practical sense. And then the second hour, we work with the clinical students as sort of a little law firm, and we do what we call case rounds, where we talk about our cases. So you get to know not only your own cases, but the cases of individuals, of other people in the clinic, and then we brainstorm about those cases. You work closely with me, but also with our with our managing attorney and our staff attorney. So it's a really great opportunity to just get in and really do the work. Darren, do you want to say, since you're here, can you say something nice about it, or no? If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Thank you. If you have, I'm sure Darren would be more than happy to talk to any of you that are interested in it. And I am always available. I may sneak out today, but by all means, feel free to come by my office or shoot me an email, and we can set up a meeting if you're interested in talking more about it.
Thank you very much. And now for an advertisement that I'd forgotten to mention. We have an international certificate, and obviously the Hinckley International Clinic will get you credit toward the international certificate. Our oldest certificate is in the Environmental, Natural Resources Law, and there the environmental practice class is 3 credits toward your certificate, and an environmental clinic can be up to 3 credits toward your certificate. We have a public interest law and policy certificate, and there you have to do clinic, right? You have to do at least 3 credits of clinic work that's public policy oriented, like the Innocence Clinic or like some of the other clinics we're going to talk about. And you can go up to 6 credits for the clinic itself. Next, we'll move on to our last in-house clinic, which is our newest clinic, which is our low-income taxpayers clinic. So Brian Hinckley, who's our professor overseeing that one.
All right, tax is exciting, right? Actually, many of you are probably thinking you don't want anything to do with tax, but the fact of the matter is, in all of your careers, in whatever area you practice, whether it's environmental law, family law, business law, you're going to interact with the IRS, and your clients are going to interact with the IRS. And what this clinic does is gives you the tools and the experience to not be worried about that interaction. And that's huge for clients and for yourselves in a lot of ways. A little background I would give about myself as well is that I'm a history and anthropology undergrad. You don't have to be an accounting or finance major to get into tax, especially where lawyers are concerned. It really gets into the policy issues, and that's a lot of what our clinic does, is making sure that low-income taxpayer clinics get their earned income tax credit and get their child tax credit and those things they have a right to as taxpayers. And so, and then of course some of you are saying, well, I'm interested in business, but I'm not here for the low-income stuff. But the same tools you learn defending these low-income taxpayers' rights are the same tools that are being used by Microsoft right now to fight the IRS. They're going through the same administrative and judicial procedures that we practice in the class. And so the other plug I would say, back to how many of you don't want anything to do with tax, I think many of you would enjoy tax as well. A lot of people find to be a rewarding and different practice of law. So I hope some of you will give it a chance. We can't take all of you, unfortunately. But what we do is the first semester is a lot about tax procedure and practice, whether that's before the IRS or through tax court. And then we do the second semester primarily rounds where we'll discuss the cases. And that's the great thing about the tax clinic, is that from day one, you'll be interacting with clients. You'll also, and running their cases. And that can include interacting with the client, helping them collect information, to representing them in administrative hearings and before the tax court and potentially the circuit courts. The other thing we do that's a lot of fun for a lot of the students is we do outreach to primarily the English as a second language community here in Salt Lake. So we do a lot of stuff with the Somali Refugee Center here in Salt Lake. We do things with the Moab Multi-Valley Cultural Center down in Moab. We go to the Mexican consulate a couple times a month to do outreach and educate taxpayers about their rights as taxpayers. And it's really a great experience, and you should take the tax clinic, I guess.
Thanks, Brian.
Last year we even had a student do a public service announcement and made a video, which we're not going to play for you, about claiming children for tax purposes. You want to?
And I'm a student attorney with the low income.
Yeah, we don't want to watch the whole thing. Okay. It'll count as another hit, and they'll cheating with our IRS reports. Okay. And the tax clinic as well will qualify toward the business law certificate. I'm not sure about the litigation certificate. It ought to. So I'm going to take a interruption here from our guests, because there are a number of small clinics that we offer where the faculty member overseeing the clinic wasn't able to come today. And seeing as I've been overseeing the whole clinical program for longer than you want to imagine, I said I'd cover those opportunities. And in no particular order, we offer a health law clinic. Professor Francis teaches a health law course that you would want to take either during or while you're in a health law placement. Most of the placements are local. For instance, students will work on campus with our, scroll down so we can see the placements, Intermountain Healthcare, in-house counsel, which is really exciting because you get the experience of being in-house counsel as well as the experience of health law. University Hospitals and Clinics Risk Management Office or HIPAA privacy offices. You're working right on campus, and the kind of corporate decisions that need to be made to run a hospital and to deal with privacy. We've had students at ARUP. There have been other health law placements, which escape me right off the top of my head.
Well, like there's a compliance component of Intermountain Healthcare. We had a student there recently, also with, is it one of the insurance, Secure Med? Not
Yeah.
Secure Med. Forgot. One of the insurance companies regionally, we also had a student.
So there, the focus isn't so much on skills as the kind of placement and understanding how the law and rights of patients and needs for effectiveness in practice all interrelate. Okay, let's move on to the SEC. The SEC enforcement clinic allows you to work downtown in the SEC. Now, some of you are thinking the SEC is what reviews corporate offerings before they're made public. And that's true, but that's not what this clinic does. This is an enforcement clinic. So this is a litigation-oriented clinic and a compliance-oriented clinic. So they're out looking for fraudsters. And shockingly, we have a lot of fraud out there. So you're doing data analysis. People with financial backgrounds really like this. And you're taking part of litigation, dealing with discovery, the whole 9 yards of discovery. We'd like you to take Professor Schwartz's course, Current Issues in Securities Law, which is a seminar in the spring semester to accompany the SEC. Some people will do the SEC Enforcement Clinic year-long. Other people will do it just for one semester. I highly recommend that you don't try to do this in the fall of your second year or the summer after your first year unless you've got substantial financial background from a prior career. You're really going to benefit from this more after you've taken the basic business organizations course, maybe a basic tax course. And so in your third year, if you're really interested in business and enforcement, you know, that marriage of litigation and business, this is a great opportunity. It's a really good office downtown. It doesn't just cover Utah, it covers a great amount of the western United States. So that's a great opportunity. And also will count toward your business law certificate and should count toward your litigation certificate. Some of those you need to get the right dean to sign off. Okay. Let me talk about the legislative clinic. We have a course that we offer in the fall semester called Legislative Process. It's taught by Vice President Jason Perry, who is also the university's representative advocating for the university to the legislature. And he focuses primarily on the legislative process in Utah, from soup to nuts. And I know if you've watched the School of Rock, how a bill is made, it's that on a higher level. Students like to intern for lawmakers that are lawyers working on their projects, usually beginning in the fall when they're having committee hearings and investigating law change, and always spending a lot of time during the session following a bill or advocating for a bill or educating the community. Students can also intern with nonprofits that have a legislative presence. For instance, Voices for Utah Children is a possible placement that one might work with on legislative advocacy. Okay. Moving right along, another small clinic we have is the mediation clinic. I say small because there aren't a lot of placements to do mediation. But after you acquire the basic skills of negotiation and mediation, you can have a placement where you get to shadow a mediator and assist with mediation. What's our most recent placement?
Utah Labor Commission.
The Utah Labor Commission. A lot of mediation occurs in family law and employment law, and so working with the Utah Labor Commission allows you to work with a mediator resolving employment discrimination or wage claim issues. If you're interested in mediation, there are some other placements in the civil clinic that will give you some insight into mediation in the family law area. For the mediation clinic, you take the Mediation Advanced Negotiation course that Professor Holbrook teaches, and it's just a one-credit clinic because it's you only get credit for the time you're mediating. You don't have to do the great work about a mediator is you don't have to do a lot of office work. You just show up and have people argue, and it's much more high excitement than a lot of more bean counting experiences. The victims clinic. I will talk about that as a placement within the civil clinic But when Professor Cassell is teaching his victims' rights course, the opportunity to work for Utah Crime Victims Legal Clinic exists to go along with that course. That course is substantively focused. We're obviously asking you to acquire the skills of a victim advocate, and here you're representing victims of crime in the criminal case most likely. Occasionally you might be representing the same victim of crime obtaining a stalking injunction or a protective order. And this is clients who have been wronged and a high tension kind of experience, but can be a very fulfilling experience. I've decided this is enough time for me to speak, and now would be a good time for me to segue to having Professor McCormick, who I saw sneak in a little bit ago, talk about the judicial clinic. And then we'll go to the civil clinic and the arranged clinic, and we'll have time for questions.
And criminal clinic.
And criminal, oh, how could we forget the criminal clinic, which you guys can't sign up for yet, but you should be planning for.
Well, there are some 2Ls here.
Okay, with all of that on the agenda, I will be really brief. Now, I do have to say I need the help of the low-income taxpayer clinic. I'll play the recording that I just got telling me I have less than 24 hours before the cops arrive at my door. I hope you're all getting those so we can all participate in digital fraud. The judicial clinic consists basically of placements with judges of a variety of sorts, and then contemporaneously with that, a course called judicial process. And we'll emphasize those are two separate items. I don't have that much to do with the placement in the courts. Kay will be your principal contact with that. There's information on the web and all of that. Basically what you're doing is you're working for the judge. And you're getting a lot of insight in that process into the way courts work, the way judges think, how decisions get made. You're learning a lot in school about legal analysis, how to take precedents, statutes, come up with arguments for and against different positions. This is about how to make the decision. And it's very different when you have live people affected by a decision. You get a different sense of what the law is actually trying to accomplish. In the judicial process course then, I kind of think of it as applied jurisprudence. We're thinking about now how do judges operate within this construct of the rule of law. And it's that place where you come to reflect on the experience. And we emphasize reflection as the key to the experiential learning. I assume we've talked about that a fair bit already, right? Okay, so this is the reflection component to the experience. We will talk about statutory interpretation, the common law, constitutional interpretation. We'll even look at a little bit of other systems, how civil law systems work, informal systems. There are plenty of opportunities to bring into the classroom ideas that you have picked up from your experience. In addition, we'll look at a variety of other courts. We will send you out to do observations in drug court, veterans court, homeless court, mental health court, immigration court. There are so many different subspecialties of courts these days. It's important to know how the system now is composed of so many different pieces. And that will all reflect back into the course component. As I say, you'll have opportunities to do a lot of writing and reflecting. We require weekly discussion posts from every student in the course. We have usually papers written on these observations at other tribunals, and then we have a final paper at the end in which you use the material from the course to analyze a particular part of the judicial system. Can't emphasize enough, this is an opportunity to think about and reflect on the way the judicial system works. What is the rule of law about? And then it's also a pretty heavy dose of writing, which never does any of us any harm. Is that enough for now? Okay, good. Thank you. Hope to see you then.
All right. So I skipped over one of the smaller clinics, the appellate clinic, which is overseen by Troy Boer, one of our adjuncts and a partner at Boer, Zimmerman, and Jones.
It's not Jones.
No Jones anymore because Jones has gone off to become a judge. So, they have former Supreme Court justices and, judges have been grown out of that place. So the course talks about and teaches you the basic steps to do appellate practice, and the placements allow you to work on a major or a couple major appellate cases. The typical placements are Salt Lake Legal Defenders, the Boer-Zimmerman office, working on a pro bono case, sometimes a pro bono case for the Innocence Clinic, or a governmental office, the U.S. Attorney's Office or the Utah Attorney General's Office. Those are big cases, and if you perceive of a career in litigation where you're going to be doing appellate work, it's a great opportunity to learn from a really master appellate lawyer. Okay. Moving right along to the other areas that I haven't covered yet. Let me talk about the civil clinic and the arranged clinic and then the criminal clinic. The civil clinic, you heard about this for summer school. The judicial clinic is our largest enrollment clinic. The civil clinic is second. The civil clinic is offered every semester. The course is lawyering skills, and the focus is on your basic office skills of client interviewing, client counseling, witness interviewing, case analysis and problem solving and strategic decision making, and then negotiating. People take the skills course to do the tax clinic, and people that take the skills course have a wide variety of placements to choose from. Probably the most popular and typical placement is Utah Legal Services, representing low-income people in a wide variety of civil matters that they may have. Another excellent placement is the Legal Aid Society, where you represent low-income people in family law matters. It's a great opportunity to appear in court and do protective orders. You can appear in court and do protective orders summer after your first year. Other placements include immigration law offices and Holy Cross Ministries, the Disability Law Center, the Victims' Rights Clinic, which we talked about as a victims clinic. Well, you can go and work at that same office as an intern through the civil clinic by taking lawyering skills and having that skills foundation to be interacting with the clients in that office. Let's go back to the homepage and see what I'm missing in terms of placements. Legal services, legal aid. The guardian ad litem's office represents children in abuse and neglect cases, parental termination cases, and sometimes protective order cases. They represent the interests of the children, and if you have a desire to work with children or if you had a past experience working with children, this might be an excellent way for you to give back to the community and do some good. Holy Cross Ministries, I mentioned. We have a couple private lawyers who do so much pro bono work. We occasionally let a student work with them. This occurs in the immigration area and in the family law area. I think that's about it for the civil clinic. The civil clinic is a entree to the litigation certificate and the public interest law and policy certificate. Now, occasionally people are enrolled in the lawyering skills course and they want a different kind of placement experience that isn't serving the needy. So for instance, maybe they want to work with the on-campus NCAA compliance office because they have a goal of working in that area given their past experience with sports. Well, we'll let you take the lawyering skills class and work at the NCAA compliance office. Any other popular placements in the past?
Well, the Utah Labor Commission is actually considered an arranged clinic.
Okay. We have a couple new possibilities within the arranged clinic, taking the lawyering skills class and getting your experience in the U.S. Postal Service. Now, mind you, this is a litigation placement covering 18 states throughout the country, offices in Sandy, and you get to defend the United States when a postal worker runs someone over by accident. So it's your basic civil litigation. Many of you that want to work for firms are going to want to do litigation. You can start your litigation career by representing the U.S. Postal Service. They're small cases. You can take a substantial responsibility. It's recommended that you first take the pretrial practice class so that you'll have all that pretrial, how to do interrogatories and depositions and production of documents before you start doing interrogatories for the U.S. Postal Service. Okay. That was not going to be my next thing, but we'll go there. The Consumer Federation of America is an organization that advances consumer interests through research, advocacy, and education. Professor Peterson is running off to take a half-time gig being in charge of some major part of the Consumer Federation of America. If he's there, he will be in charge of a major part of whatever they're doing. And so this is an opportunity to be an intern with Professor Chris Peterson, working on consumer issues, preparing litigation, preparing comments on regulations, and you may even get a trip to D.C. But Professor Peterson will be mostly working from Salt Lake, and so this is an opportunity to become familiar with regulatory processes and consumer law issues with one of the nation's finest lawyers in that area. The last new placement that's arranged, and I don't have the paperwork yet because I'm promised the paperwork but I haven't gotten it, is a placement with the U.S. Attorney's Office doing civil law. And again, if a forest worker runs somebody over with their truck, you get to represent them, defending them in tort actions at the U.S. Attorney's Office. So it's also, you know, the U.S. Attorney's Office we think of as a criminal law placement, and that's mostly what they do, but they also have a division that does civil law, and it's a great opportunity to learn discovery. Just like for the Postal Service, you can represent more people within federal government that are being sued or that are suing someone, right? So the federal government might be suing someone for a perfectly good reason, and you'd be doing the litigation there out of the U.S. Attorney's Office. So watch for an announcement about that placement. So that's, are there any more arranged clinics? Yeah, that would be an arranged clinic. Again, take the lawyering skills class to learn basic, your most generic skills class, because everyone that's going to be a lawyer is going to talk to people that are either clients or witnesses or opposing people. All right, so last but definitely not least is the criminal clinic. The criminal clinic is probably our longest standing clinic. When I came here many decades ago, the criminal clinic was the thing run by former Professor Magistrate Judge Ronald Boyce. The criminal clinic is focused on teaching you the courtroom skills you need to have to practice criminal law. And a lot of the people that will graduate from that clinic will be able to go out the door and take on cases themselves. Some of them will get hired by small cities or by counties. Others will open their own defense shop. So students are placed either in a prosecutor's office or a defender's office. We work most with Salt Lake legal defenders within the defender's world. Most of our students are at the district attorney's office downtown, but we also have students working for various city attorneys, West Valley City, Sandy, Salt Lake, South Salt Lake. Next year, we anticipate having some students also working at the U.S. Attorney's Office, working on misdemeanors. Again, people like shoot off guns that they're not supposed to on federal land. People destroy equipment on Hill Air Force Base. These people need to be prosecuted by someone, and it's the U.S. Attorney's misdemeanor division that does that. In the district attorney's office and in the U.S. Attorney's Office, there's also the opportunity, and legal defenders, there's also the opportunity to be involved in some larger cases as a second chair. But if you are in handling a misdemeanor, you can do it yourself. You can stand up in court and put on the witnesses and make the opening statement and do the closing statement and This course is taught by District Attorney Sandy Johnson and myself. Sandy was a former student in the program. She tried a jury case in October of her third year. She was like the most ardent advocate that I remember having in the criminal clinic. If you want to practice criminal law or you just want trial experience, that's a great way to go forward. The criminal clinic is pretty much required if you want the criminal law certificate. There's a lot of mumbo-jumbo words on this, but it basically says you've got to do the criminal clinic or another clinic if somehow you don't want to do basic criminal law. Like if you really wanted to be a victim's advocate, you could do the victim's clinic, or you really wanted to be an appellate lawyer, you could get the associate dean's permission to do the appellate clinic instead of the criminal clinic. But why would you not do the criminal clinic too, right? So, highly recommended for those of you on that career track. Have I covered everything, Kay?
Well, did you talk about the prerequisites we need to add?
Oh, yes. That's the most important thing. It's a good thing she's here to keep me in line. See, if I don't talk with notes, I just have to, she's my memory. So, you cannot do the criminal clinic as a 2L. Everything else you can do as a 2L, but you cannot do the criminal clinic as a 2L. You must wait to be a 3L. But what you must do as a 2L is prepare to do the criminal clinic. You have to take evidence, ideally summer or fall, trial advocacy, spring, and criminal procedure sometime, fall, summer, or spring. Because those are the three prerequisites for the criminal clinic. The criminal clinic has the clinical experience at the office and a 3-credit criminal process course that goes year-long that walks us through the cases, soup to nuts, during the fall, and then during the spring turns and takes a reflective look on the criminal justice system because we should all be working and thinking and studying to improve the administration of justice, the law, and the practice of law. So those are the prereqs. Oh, legal profession too. For you all, you should take legal profession in your second year as well, because you need to understand your ethical responsibilities, because things in the criminal practice are so fast-paced. You know, you've got somebody lying on the stand, and you're like, you have to know what you do. If the client lies on the stand, you can't, like, go back to the office and research it. You meet somebody and you immediately recognize a conflict of interest. Obviously a problem some Washington, D.C. lawyers had last week, because you'd think they would have screened, you know, were you representing somebody in the Mueller investigation? Then you can't represent the president, duh. But you'll learn good stuff like that when you take the legal profession. So take that in your second year. Everybody should take it in their second year because everybody is convenienced to do that. But the criminal clinic people have to take it in their second year.
And talk about if they're going to graduate early.
Oh, yes. She is such a gem because I talk fast, but my brain sometimes gets ahead of my mouth. Okay. If you want to graduate early, can you do the criminal clinic? Only if you come and see us now and make plans ahead. Okay. So fall semester is the soup to nuts how to do it, and spring is the reflection. You need to plan to take criminal process in your second year. Then you can do the clinic work summer after your second year and fall of your third year and graduate in December. Don't waltz in midway through your second year saying, oh, I'd really love to do the criminal clinic over summer and fall and graduate in December. I will go, oh no, you should have seen us earlier. You need to plan ahead so that you get the fall how to do it, in the spring, what do we think about it, and then you're ready to hit the ground running summer after your second year and fall of your third year. Barbara, have I missed anything?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to Barbara, so. Okay, what else have I missed?
I think that's it.
She's taken notes. Okay, so we still have some guests here that are available to answer questions as well as Kay and myself. And look at that. We finished before an hour. That's the goal. Okay. Come here.
Will become available after they publish the schedule for next year, which is usually, maybe by the second week in April. Yeah. And once they have the schedule published, I'll start accepting clinic applications. So we'll email you.
You won't miss it.
You won't miss it.
You can't apply for this until you also have the ability to apply for all your other classes.
Right. And there will be a hard deadline for criminal, innocence, new ventures, which are the 3-year-long clinics, as well as a hard deadline for fall judicial.
Questions? Yes. This is an excellent question. Yes. The answer is yes. You can do clinics in many different semesters. Say, for instance, you've taken the lawyering skills class summer after your first year and you've worked at legal aid and you've done family law. You don't have to take the class again to then work at legal services and do landlord-tenant and get into court for family law and get into court for landlord-tenant and come back and do the disability law center and represent disabled people in suits against the prison. You can do, within the civil clinic, you can do multiple placements. In the judicial clinic, you can do multiple placements. You can do multiple clinics. You can take 14 credits of clinic. That only counts the credits for outside the law school. So think about it. If each clinic is 3 credits or 4 credits, how many semesters do you have after the spring? Well, maybe 4 semesters. Well, 3 every semester. That adds up to 12. That doesn't max out your clinic credits, right? So you could do clinics every semester if you want to. You don't want to max out too many during summer after your first year. The maximum for most clinics is 5 credits. Most clinics are 2 to 3 credits a semester. So yeah, you can, and Kay is the excellent point person. Kay and I are on the 3rd floor. Kay's in 3257, which is the 3rd office down the hall from the career development office. So come to us and talk with us about what's going on. For instance, the civil and the arranged clinic, these are designed to be generic, acquire generic skills, not any particular specialty, substantive specialty, because it's transferable. If you learn how to interview a very troublesome client that's upset and maybe has some mental illness because they need Social Security disability insurance, you will be really well positioned to interview a very troublesome client who might be a CEO of a company, and they are out there. You've noticed from the news there'll be some troublesome rich people out there. So learning how to deal with troublesome people, even though they're poor, will be very good in dealing with troublesome people that are rich and entitled. I have a great story from my early years of practice and the troublesome people I had, first at a law firm and then at legal services. So many opportunities. Another excellent question is probably out there, and you're going to wait and come up afterwards, and no one else in the room will hear the answer to your excellent question. Do not be shy. Any clinic room people in the room want to give any testimonials of their experience? We made you talk, so. Yeah. And she really impressed her supervisor. She didn't know she was such a good writer until her supervisor says, "This is the best intern I have ever had," and got nominated for the Lewis Award. So there's an award we give to the best clinic students when they graduated. Jency won the award, okay? Because she worked at legal services on Social Security disability. And Mike had forgotten that Jency was the most wonderful student when he met you. But there is an award for best clinic students upon graduation. And you can also produce documents that you will use for your portfolio. Before you graduate, you will have a portfolio writing requirement and a seminar paper writing requirement. And except for the judicial, which is judges sort of don't like to say you wrote the opinion, but everybody else is cool with you wrote this brief, you wrote this memorandum of law, you wrote this argument, you wrote this request for production of documents. And so you can develop a portfolio that may be useful for you, in getting out of here for sure, but even in being able to develop writing samples for future jobs. Okay. More questions? Yes?
Do you take the actual class component of the clinic at the same time as you take the environmental practice like you mentioned so in the fall?
The ABA requires that you be involved in reflecting with a faculty member during the time you are at the placement. And that's best done, and that's why the class and the placement being concurrent is ideal. But if you, some reason, can't do a environmental placement in the fall, but can do one in the spring, I'd say take it in the fall and do it in the spring, right? Or you've taken it in the fall, you've done something in the fall, and then you want to do something else the next fall, that's fine. But you can't do the placement first and then do the class. Simultaneous is ideal, and then later is optional, just because of scheduling nuances. Okay, everybody's eager to get out of here, so the few of you that have not asked your question can gather, come on up and ask your private questions. Thank you all very much for coming, and be sure to share. Come talk to us individually, because we're glad to give you individual counseling and problem solving for these kind of questions. All right, thanks for coming. Sorry nobody had any more questions about your thing. No problem. That's great. The questions were generic.
This is very helpful.
Thanks for coming. What are you going to do next year?
Criminal clinic.
Okay.
Quick question about that though. So,